Hey everyone, and welcome to Basmanstudio. My name is Charles Basman, and in today's lesson we will be painting another celebrity portrait. This time we're going to paint a portrait of Mark Hamill, aka Luke Skywalker. So let's hope the force is with me today as I start this painting, and sit back and relax and enjoy this new lesson from Basmanstudio. So here's our reference, a picture of Mark Hamill as Luke Skywalker from the 70s. And as usual, we start with nice blank canvas and a very pointy brush. So remember, just draw in the shape of the head, keeping it really simple, no detail. And you just want to go all around. We call this the contour. You look at the outside of your subject, like what's pushing the subject out from the background, basically. And you use that as a guide, like a silhouette, basically. And just keep it really simple, just the big masses. And you can see I'm adding no detail to it. Just indicating, it's an indication at this point. You're indicating where things are. You're indicating where the hair is, and even where the eyes are. Remember, no detail, just an indication. Just placing the eyes where they should be. And the nose, and the mouth. And yes, it will look cartoony in the beginning, but that's fine. At this stage, it's still very sketchy. It'll remain so for a while, actually. And at this point, you could kind of fix also anything that needs to be fixed. And the great thing about keeping it simple is if you do make a mistake, it's easily fixed because it's still at the sketchy stage. And just here, as you can see, now I'm using a big flat brush, and you just want to indicate now where the big shadows are, just the big shadows. Don't worry about the small stuff. Large masses of shadow. And this shows where the light's coming from. And it also gives volume to the subject. As you can see, it's starting to pull out a little bit. Remember, large masses. And you just want to go all around and just make sure that you put everything that should be in there before we actually start using color. And no need to be too careful at this point, but just make sure everything is correct. And just softening up a little bit, the shadows a little bit. But not too much. The trick is to know when to stop. That takes practice. So now I'm just using the background to pull the figure forward. And the good thing about starting with the background is that it helps push whatever the subject is forward. Makes it easier to see, actually. So again, keep it really simple. And now I'm going to mix the color for the hair, the light part of the hair, actually. So I'm using a little bit of white and a small bit of yellow, because it's more white than yellow. And I'm keeping it pretty thick at this point. And we get a nice bright yellow. So don't worry if the paint mixes with paint, because it's all wet right now. It's oil paint, so it's just going to happen. So again, this is just an indication of where the big masses are. And now I'm painting the clothes after I painted the flesh tone. Just big masses of color, remember. Beautiful orange. And now we can start putting in the shadows. And you can see I'm not putting any detail. This is all extremely broad masses with a big brush. So just have fun with it. Just this is a point where you could get a little bit of expressive. You could exaggerate a little bit. And now just the dark masses of the hair. Again with a big brush. I haven't changed brushes yet. And just go all around. Don't focus on one area. Go all around the painting. Yep, just make sure everything is correct. And now after we got our broad masses down, now as you can see I already put in the very simply the color of the eyes, and now I'm just fixing the background a little bit with a slightly smaller brush. So I'm not staying in one area. You see I'm going around the painting. I'm not focusing on just small details. And using our reference again, you can see all the detail, like where the shadows are. So now I'm just putting in, again, with really slightly smaller brush, indicating where the eyelids are. So you just want to make sure your hand is steady at this point. You could use a maul stick. I mentioned the maul stick in previous lessons. Just a stick that you could buy at an art store just to steady your hand. And just very carefully. This takes a little practice to have a steady hand. And you could even soften some shadows, like I'm softening shadows on the nose. And at this point the paint is still wet, so you're working what we call wet on wet. And now I could go back and I could kind of fix or make the color a little darker on his clothes. With this beautiful orange. And now I'm just working on the background just to clean it up a little bit. Background's very important. It pulls the figure forward or it pushes the figure back. But at this point we want the figure to be pushed forward. And now with a really, really small brush, as you can see, I'm putting in the pupils of the eye very carefully. It's almost like you're redrawing. So just do it very carefully and take your time. You never want to rush anything that requires like a steady hand. You just want to take your time. And the bottom lid of the eye will help pull the eye forward and give it sort of like a wet look. And you can see how thin this brush is. It's just wonderful to use. And you just want to smooth it out a little bit. Hey everyone, I just wanted to mention a website where I have some work. It's called Art in Res. It's an amazing website where you could see works from many talented artists and purchase them if you wish on a monthly installment basis, which makes it affordable to everyone. So I just put up a few of my recent lithographs on this site, as well as paintings and drawings of mine. So take a look. It's called Art in Res. It's fantastic. So the link is in the description below, so check them out. So let's continue this lesson from Basmanstudio. And now you can see, looking at our reference again as we continue, now I'm just going to soften up some of the shadows. So we're almost at the finishing stage, right? But we're still kind of molding everything so it works. So I have put detail, but I haven't really put the very fine finishing touches yet. And you just want to blend. This is part of the blending part of the painting. Just want to soften shadows and go back and clean things up. And even parts of the hair, you could add a little bit, make it a little bit more light, just to pull it out from the background. With nice thick paint. And you can see it's from the reference, like his head really stands out from the background, so we just want that effect. And now we could go back on the hair, and we could even darken the hair. It'll make a nice contrast with the light part of the hair. So this is where you can get a little bit richer with color. And you can see I mixed a very rich dark brown color using burnt sienna and black and a little bit of red. And now, with a very fine brush, you can start adding smaller detail, such as details on the nose. Very carefully. Remember, a steady hand. Again, use a maul stick if you need to steady your hand. With practice, though, you could acquire a steady hand and patience. It takes a little bit of practice. And just fixing the nostril, and now the lips. We can indicate the part of the lips. Again, very carefully with a very fine brush. It's worth it to get a very, very thin, fine brush for details such as this. And now, working again on the eyes. Because we want the upper eyelid. We want to draw the upper eyelid. And very carefully indicate where the upper eyelid is. And now one of my favorite parts is putting the highlights to give the eye like the glassy, wet appearance. So very thick, a mix of white and a little bit of yellow. And you can see the eyes look a little bit wet. And now, with the same thin brush, now you can add a little bit of the details on the clothing. Kind of with a dry brush technique. Dry brush meaning I'm not using a lot of medium, just the pigment. And now we could start adding the final details to this painting, such as there's a rim light hitting his shoulder. So we're just going to indicate that. So you want to go around your painting and just make sure that you put all the information that you want to put in. Now that's an artist's choice. If you want to put in a massive amount of detail, that's your choice. If you want to leave it kind of sketchy, that's okay too, as long as it works. And as long as it's what you want to express. And now you could soften shadows. So I went back and I remixed flesh tone, and I'm just softening a little bit of the shadows before I call this painting finished. And you want to go all around. And soften as much as you want. Anything that you see that needs to be filled in. And there we have it, our finished painting of Luke Skywalker. Well, I hope you all enjoyed that lesson from Basmanstudio. Remember, if you have any comments or questions, leave them in the comment section here on my channel. And also, if anybody has an idea of a lesson that I haven't, or a subject that I haven't touched upon and they'd like to see, please let me know, and I'll certainly consider it for the next video. And any advice that you need, any art advice, I'll gladly help anyone out if they need advice. So remember, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, Basmanstudio, for new videos which are coming up very soon. And as always, go out there, be expressive, don't let fear stop you from creating, and create some great art. See you next time, everyone.